Welcome to College Smart Radio, helping you bring into focus the true cost of college and how to tackle the runaway cost of financing a college education. College Smart Radio is hosted by Beatrice Schultz, a certified financial planner and founder of Westface College Planning. Now, here's your host for College Smart Radio, Beatrice Schultz.
Welcome to College Smart Radio. In 2010, recent college graduates left school owing on average $25,000 in student loans, the highest amount ever. Frustration with the economy and high unemployment rates is consistently shaping public opinion as college degrees, traditionally thought of as a safeguard against unemployment, no longer guarantee gainful positions. While college-educated people do stand a better chance of landing a job than those who don't go to secondary school, the time it takes to pay back the money laid out for a degree is growing, causing many to question the efficacy of attending college. So, today's College Smart Radio program topic is college worth it? My guest today is Cheryl Marshall, a financial correspondent on Boston's NPR station WGBH Radio. Together, we're going to dissect the data and some reports from U.S. News, Smart Money, Market Watch to help understand the big question, is college worth it? Hi, I'm Beatrice Schultz. Welcome to our weekly show, College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of a college education. Our show is all about bringing up-to-date and practical advice to parents who are dealing with the cost of a college education for their kids. With some private schools costing over $60,000 a year, a UC costing $35,000 and a California State University running $25,000, parents need more help than ever. We bring you that help by sharing ways to pay less, tapping into financial aid, and prioritizing your source of funds to make sure you get through the most expensive years of your life. Based on my own education and experience, I share my insights with you week in and week out. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering and a Master's degree in International Business. I am a certified financial planner and the owner of the San Carlos-based college planning business, Westface College Planning. I host workshops and webinars on college planning and consult with parents on a daily basis. In addition to my insights, I bring in experts in many areas of the college process, from counselors, financial professionals, financial aid officers, student coaches, parents, and even students. You'll learn firsthand the ins and outs of how to pay for college and survive financially. In addition to our show, you can find lots of powerful information at our website, collegesmartradio.com. We have many articles that I've authored with up-to-date information on navigating the waters of paying for the runaway costs of college. We have a monthly e-newsletter full of content about college planning. We also have posted a glossary of key terms used in the world of college planning, terms like EFC, total cost of attendance, FAFSA, base year, and so forth. And we have a link to our free community parent workshops and webinars that I host to teach parents about how to pay for college and how the financial aid system really works. So let's get into today's show. In the U.S., for many, college is a rite of passage. But is it worth taking on tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in students' loans? Last year, the nation's cumulative student debt surpassed credit card debt for the first time, and it could grow to $1 trillion by the end of this year. And no wonder the debt is piling up. Over the past 2 decades, the price of tuition has risen 20 times as fast as the average college grad's wages. Statistics like these help to flesh out a now familiar message. The cost of college is escalating from what was once affordable to obscene. Is it worth paying more to travel away from home to attend a Ivy League college back east or down south versus living at home and attending a public college in your neighborhood? Which colleges will offer you the best return on your investment? My guest today on today's College Smart Radio show is Cheryl Marshall, a financial correspondent on Boston's NPR station WGBH Radio. She's here to offer her expertise in our discussion about the rising costs of higher education and to help answer the question about which colleges offer the best return on investment. Hi, Cheryl. Welcome to College Smart Radio.
Well, thank you, and I'm so glad that your college degree has turned into a money-making endeavor for you. So you're a successful college graduate. Well, this is the time of year, as you and I both know, when high school seniors are making their college decisions. And as you mentioned before, the total student loan debt ballooned to more than $100 billion this year. These statistics, this is 2012, came from the Fed. So you're right on the money when you say that it'll probably be $1 trillion this year. And again, as you said, the average college grad is entering the workforce with over $25,000 in debt. And over the past 2 decades, the price of tuition has risen 20 times as fast as the average college grad's wages. Soaring price tags reflect the rising cost of college's biggest expenses, which are faculty salaries and state-of-the-art dorms and facilities, so that they can compete for the top students in the country. As you know, kids go and look at colleges and they say, oh my goodness, there's no athletic field, the workout rooms aren't good enough, I'm not applying there.
It's really true. And I mean, parents ask me that question, well, why is the price going up? And I'm like, well, because they're competing against each other and they're trying to make these wonderful facilities, and they are paying their faculties. But it's a big deal about, well, is it worth it? I guess on your question.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're going to tackle. And when U.S. News and World Report came out with their annual college ranks, they divided it up. They divided up into 2 groups. One are national universities, and one are liberal arts colleges, and a third one actually are regional colleges.
Hey, Cheryl, just a second here. Let's share a little bit about what that U.S. News Best College Rankings is. It's an annual ranking that's done in the fall of all the colleges, and then it's available to anyone publicly, and I'll have that link on my website.
Great.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure people understood what that was.
Oh, okay, fine.
No problem.
Well, my assumption is that almost anybody who's applying to college gets a copy of that. And, they rank universities by all different, metrics, okay? Size, if they're going to get the best education, what the faculty-student ratio is, typical things that you might expect. And, the question is, what do we think of their methodology? Is an Ivy League education really the ticket to success? What about other schools? And what about lists of other schools that use different methodologies? And so MarketWatch, back in the fall, and I know you're going to put the link up on your website, Beatrice, did a survey, which they're calling the Payback School. And using methodologies that are explained on their website, they calculated exactly what the payback score is for a series of schools. For example, a hypothetical alum who spent $100,000 to attend college and now earns $150,000 a year would have a personal score of 150. Just as with the SATs, the higher the score, the better it is for students, okay? So a lot of schools, and U.S. News and World Report doesn't even talk about this, don't even mention the payback score. In other words, who's going to get a job, how much you're going to get paid, and how quickly are you going to pay back that investment in your college education.
And I am definitely, this link is going to go up on my website, and I want everyone to take a look at it. And as Cheryl continues, we go through and talk about some of the details of some of these colleges, but really the bottom line is, are people making more money because they spent more on their education? And I think some of the conclusions are a little bit surprising.
Yes. Now, in terms of public schools, the average payback score is 134. Now, that's pretty good. The average salary for recent graduates of public universities, and that would include your Augusta, California universities, is $47,790. Not bad. The average salary for a mid-career grad is $87,257. And state schools have historically dominated the payback scorecard, and this year they hold the top 17 slot. Now, this is going to surprise everybody. What school do you think, Beatrice, is number one on the payback list? Meaning, where do you get the most bang for your buck in terms of how much money you earn when you graduate? It's going to surprise you.
Well, I've already cheated and taken a look at the list, so I'm not going to guess for you, but I can tell you it is a public school. Now, it's not a public school in California, so we just also need to recognize that the public schools, this is based assuming that people go to their local public schools. And we do have some California schools in the top 10. But go ahead, drum roll. What's the top school on there?
It's Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Recent Georgia Tech grads earn $59,000 a year, or a stellar 67% of what they paid in tuition. Grads in their 30s average $102,000 a year, more than 3 times their 1990s tuition tab. At mid-career, public school graduates earn less well, this is another subject, in absolute dollars than their private college counterparts. But as a proportion of their tuition, they're pulling down 58% more than Ivy grads and 85% more than alumni of non-Ivy private schools.
Yeah. It's a big deal, and there's some other public schools that show up, and in fact UC Berkeley is number 10 on that list.
Mm-hmm.
And even looking at that, though, Georgia Institute of Technology, they're looking at tuition and fees for 4 years of being about $90,000. So give or take with inflation, we divide that by 4, you're looking at $22,000, which is about what you're a year, which now we're lucky if we can get away with that with the public school systems in California. UC Berkeley, the estimate was $105,000, and that doesn't take into account room and board. But when we look down this page, you have to go quite a ways before you come up with the first Ivy League that statistically, based on these criteria, the payback scale is the one that it starts to show up on the page.
Right. But having discussed this and having, given the applause meter for the public universities, given what's going on in the United States economy, there's no guarantee that the payback math will keep favoring the public colleges in years to come.
Well, I think one of the big assumptions on the page is that the starting tuition and fees is for 4 years of college, and we know that the average student's taking 5.5 years, so we don't know what the average is for the Georgia Institute of Technology. So some of this math that's going to be one of the statistics on the page, and as there's less money for the colleges, kids aren't necessarily graduating in 4 years.
Well, also, what's happening, though, is many states, coping with budget deficits, have been cutting aid to these institutions, and I don't know what's going to happen with the sequestration, my least favorite word this week.
Yeah.
And the schools have had to hike tuition to compensate. Nationwide, public college tuition for residents, and that would include California, is up 120% in the past 10 years. At the University of Michigan, one of the lowest-ranking public schools in our payback survey, out-of-state tuition now tops $30,000 a year, and financial aid is virtually out of the question for non-residents.
And we're seeing that with a lot of the kids here in California love to go to the Oregon schools, go to the Colorado schools. The financial aid is not as available for University of Oregon, which I actually see even rates pretty high as number 14 on the list as a good school where you get good jobs. But unfortunately, if you're coming out of California, you're paying $30,000 a year to pay tuition to go to an Oregon school. So the number's then going to be a little bit different for the payback.
Yeah, well, and as I said, I think they're going to change. If they do it again this year, it's going to change based on what's happening with budget cuts. Now, with non-Ivy private colleges, the average payback score is 75.
Hey, Cheryl, let's get back to that point. I'm going to take a break right now.
Sure.
You're with us on College Smart Radio, where my guest today is Cheryl Marshall, and we will be right back on College Smart Radio.
For more information on today's topic, visit collegesmartradio.com. or call area code 650-587-1559. College Smart Radio continues in moments on AM 1220 KDOW. Contact Beatrice Schultz at collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. Now, back to College Smart Radio with your host Beatrice Schultz on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of college. I'm Beatrice Schultz. We all know that college is expensive and will most likely be some of the most costly years for a family. Understanding how to navigate the college costs to save everywhere you can is a smart thing to know. To help families be on this radio show, I host community workshops, live and via webinar several times a month that explain the cost of various colleges, how the financial aid system works, and things to consider to prepare yourself for this tremendous expense. You can find my workshop schedule and register at collegesmartradio.com. I'm talking with my guest Cheryl Marshall, a financial correspondent on Boston's NPR station WGBH Radio. Cheryl, we were just talking about Money Watch's payback score. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the rankings, and I think I kind of interrupted you mid-sentence, so I wanted to get back there.
Well, what we did was we talked about public universities, and there's two other categories that we haven't covered that are certainly worth mentioning, and one are non-private Ivy colleges, and then we'll talk a little bit about Ivy colleges, which probably are already talked about to death everywhere anyways. So
they're certainly the ones that showed up on the U.S. News rankings as the top schools.
Of course. Non-Ivy private colleges, their average payback score is 75. The average salary for recent graduates is $46,000.
And can you just remind everyone of what the average was for public schools? Was it closer to 135?
The average for public schools is exactly right, 134, and the average salary for recent grads is let's call it $48,000, and for mid-career it's $87,000.
Okay.
Now, for non-Ivy private schools, the average payback score is 75. The average salary is 46, but the average salary for mid-career grads is slightly more at 91,000. By their mid-30s, alumni of the 21 private liberal arts schools that MarketWatch surveyed are pulling down only about 4% more than their public school peers, despite having spent almost twice as much in tuition. Okay, that's quite a difference.
That's quite a difference.
Yeah, and this gap reflects the less competitive compensation in liberal arts-oriented careers like education, the arts, and public policy. I mean, there's a lot of things you have to think about. It's always looking at numbers in context, Beatrice. Just looking at a list of numbers doesn't help you unless you understand the context. So we can imagine that most graduates of Georgia Tech are going into very high-paying occupations, engineering, computer science, and graduates of, liberal arts colleges are going into things, as they said, teaching or the arts or, government work or something like that that pays much less. But it's not a gap that's likely to go away. Between now and 2020, the Bureau of Labor Statistics expects the annual growth of 3% or better in jobs in healthcare, software, computer design, and engineering, but much slower growth in softer jobs like humanities-oriented fields such as education, government, and things like that.
Yeah, and definitely the point which you've made clear, what you shared clearly with this payback score is whichever one you're going to choose to do, numbers don't show that paying more to go to, in your example, the non-Ivy League private school is going to fare better, and all you're going to end up with is a lot more debt, but not necessarily likelihood of a better job.
Right, exactly. And top-tier private universities and colleges pride themselves on how well they prepare their students for grad school. According to PayScale, mid-career graduates of all the private schools on the list were much more likely than the average bachelor's degree holder to have earned a graduate degree. And nationwide, advanced degree holders earn 28% more than the bachelor's-only crowd. Of course, there's only one big caveat. Getting more schooling means
more money,
more tuition, and more people visiting your website.
Yeah.
So, again, context is everything. And then we come to the Ivies. The average payback score there is 88, not that high. The average salary, though, for recent grads is $54,000, and the average salary for mid-career grads is over $110,000. And at first glance, the stereotypical connection between an Ivy League degree and a gold-plated salary appears to, absolutely hold water. 3 years out of college, Ivy grads are earning around 9% more per year than their peers from other private schools. By their mid-30s, that gap has shrunk. It has widened, I apologize, to 14%, and Ivy League alumni are 2 to 4 times as likely as the average college graduate to go on and earn an advanced degree, along with the higher compensation that comes with it. So, there's a reason that the Ivies, are so popular.
Sure, but that payback score still means something. Now, obviously,
of course.
And that they put together a formula, pretty straightforward formula, and it doesn't necessarily talk about how many years you're going to be working, but
But for example, 4 years of tuition and fees at an average at an Ivy League school is $140,000, and a recent Ivy grad's compensation average $53,000, $54,000 a year represents 39% of his or her education costs. Public school grads take home about $6,000 less annually, but they earn 52% of their tuition. At 15 years, after 15 years of college, the payback ratio is 137% for the Ivies versus 216% for state school kids.
It's a big difference. Everyone's going to be listening to this a different way. If money doesn't matter,
right?
Hey, why not go to the Ivy League school if you can get in and you can go there? But money's mattering more and more for Everyone.
For
There are few
everybody,
families.
for
It doesn't matter
everybody.
how much you make. $50,000 is a lot. It just doesn't come out of the monthly budget. $50,000 a year, or $70,000 now. The most expensive colleges when you start to include room and board in there.
That's correct. It's huge, and in this kind of an economic environment, people have to be more watchful than ever. Whereas before, you might be able to say, I'm sure in California, because my peers are like, oh, I live in California and we have the best educational system in the country. I'm going there to a university in California, and that's just not true anymore. I mean, it's just turned into a very painful situation. But, one thing that we haven't talked about, Beatrice, is who graduates with the least amount of debt, and that is not factored in to the conversation we were just having. So you can go through U.S. News and World Report and look at, the metrics that they use to pick the best schools, the best in undergraduate business or the best in engineering or the best liberal arts. But what we're not looking at is, yes, the payback score is great, but what schools do you go to where you graduate with the least amount of debt? And that's really something, to look at. And it would be useful to kind of cross-reference the payback score from the MarketWatch list with the students who graduate with the least amount of debt from the U.S. News and World Report list. And I'm just going to mention a few of these colleges.
Yeah, thanks.
I know you won't be surprised, but Princeton is at the top of the list. Now, why is Princeton at the top of the list? First of all, I don't want to ding any university or college because they're trying really hard to help their students out. In 2001, 45% of Princeton's seniors graduated with debt averaging $15,000 per student. Since then, the school has broadened a no-loan program for upper-middle income families. Today, only 25% of outgoing seniors have debt, averaging $5,000. So it's no surprise that Princeton tops the list of colleges and universities where students graduate with the least amount of debt.
And Princeton it's a great example when we talk about this, when families understand that Princeton does still have a need formula, but they have a more generous need formula. They're still not offering it out for merit. And so families, that's one of the reasons why I work with a lot of families, and if you attend my workshops, you want to understand how your family's going to fit best into that formula if Princeton's on your list, because I think 70% of kids at Princeton get financial aid. That's a huge number if you think that it's a $60,000 college when you count it all up. So you want to understand how those formulas work for you. I love that number.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. And so let me just go through. I'm going to go through randomly. Needless to say, the Ivies are the universities and colleges where kids, students graduate with the least amount of debt. But here's a few other ones that kind of surprised me. Well, Caltech's right up there. Beatrice, I don't know if you noticed that. University of Houston, here's some other state schools, San Diego State University, University of Texas in Dallas, University of Florida, UC Berkeley, which I thought was very interesting, University of Buffalo SUNY, University of Pennsylvania, University of New Orleans. So that's, from the national universities. Regionally, in New York, and I know you're in California, Touro College in New York, all the CUNY schools in New York. In the West, Cal State at Dominguez Hills, Cal State at Long Beach, and Cal State in Fresno. Regional colleges, you've got the University of Maine in Fort Kent, the University of Maine in Presque Isle, and since I live in Massachusetts, I can tell you the population of Presque Isle is quite small. And in the West, you have Rogers State University. Some of these I never even heard of. Master's College and Seminary, must be a religious school. University of Montana. Wellesley College is on the list of, least debt, and that's, you could say, is a woman's Ivy. St. Mary's College of Maryland, Barnard College, Pomona College in California.
Hey, Cheryl, I think there is so much information available, and I am going to have those links to my website. Unfortunately, we've got to end the show. Thank you so much for joining us on College Smart Radio.
Thank you for having me, Beatrice, and to all of the parents and students out there, good luck.
Thank you, Cheryl. A link to the U.S. News Best College Rankings and MarketWatch Payback Score articles are available on my website, collegesmartradio.com, under Resources and then Links. Check out the U.S. News Best College Rankings to compare at a glance the relative quality of institutions based on the widely accepted indicators of excellence you might expect, And as you check out the data for colleges already on your shortlist for college, you'll discover other unfamiliar schools with similar metrics, and it can help you to broaden your options. Most families are looking at these rankings. The big takeaway from the MarketWatch payback score is that by mid-career, on average for college graduates, their pay is the same no matter how much they paid for their education or which college they earned their degree from. Remember, college is a huge expense for a family. Understanding how much your family will need to pay for college and making the right college choices that meet your budget just makes plain good sense. Well, that wraps up another weekly show of College Smart Radio. We hope you picked up some new information today that helps you figure out ways to manage the runaway costs of college. You can hear us each week here on KDOW 1220 AM, Saturdays at 3 p.m. We promise to bring you up-to-date information from the front lines of helping parents deal with the most expensive years of their lives. For a link to a podcast of this show and our prior weekly shows, go to our website, collegesmartradio.com. This is Beatrice Schultz. Thanks for tuning in to College Smart Radio. We look forward to sharing more helpful information with you next week.
You've been listening to College Smart Radio with certified financial planner Beatrice Schultz. If you have questions on today's topic, log on to collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. That's 650-587-1559. Join us next week at this time for another edition of College Smart Radio on AM 1220 KDOW.